Start the recording. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. As you all know, this is a public meeting and it's recorded and it will be uploaded to YouTube. So we've got two items on the agenda. So the first one is Matthew from Batch on GKE. He's here to introduce us to Google's new system that enables batch on Kubernetes. So he contacted me and he thought it would be like a good idea to present what they have. Unfortunately, today we don't have too many people. I think everybody's on the holidays. So Matthew, feel free if you want to defer until after the holidays so that you have wider audience. Or you can do it, it's recorded and everyone can see it.
Yeah, I'm definitely happy to wait till after the holidays. Maybe, especially if there's any discussion or questions, then that makes it easier rather than having the recording. Okay. Yeah, I can wait. I'm out for like about 3 weeks, so it'll be kind of mid-January, but I think that's still okay. Yeah, how do we do that then?
Yeah, I mean, we still got a lot of time today. Wei and Mike are like two of the most active members of the community, and they have strong opinions in how the scheduler should go, their directions, etc. Like Wei is from IBM, Mike from Red Hat. So it might be a good idea even now, like to just give a really high level, what is KBatch and
okay, sure, yeah.
Like basically an informal discussion.
Yeah, sure.
How does that sound, Wei and Mike?
Yeah, that sounds great. Yes, I'd like a high-level overview.
Okay.
Sure. So I have just a few slides, so maybe I can start with that. I won't go through maybe all the details this time, but just like maybe the first few, just to kind of introduce things. Let me see if I can share that. Let me know if you can see.
Yeah, I can see. I can see.
Okay, great. So I'm on a team at Google working on HPC solutions built on top of Kubernetes. And we recently introduced Batch on GKE, which we also call KBatch. So as part of us launching this into beta, we made the API for our batch system public. And so that's mostly one I wanted to focus on, but I also wanted to just give also a general overview of what our product goals are and what it can do. We basically introduced this because a lot of customers want to run batch type of workloads, and Kubernetes is something that's becoming kind of the new standard for job management, and so we wanted to kind of merge those ideas together. Some of the features are having these batch constructs, so the idea of queues and queue priorities, supporting job dependencies and constraints, and soon the idea of array jobs. One kind of unique feature we added is around cost management. So admins can set things like budget controls, and we also support auto-scaling with a custom auto-scaler, so we can minimize the amount of idle resources in the system, and also support right sizing. So we tailor the size of the VM to the requirements of the user's job. In addition to that, we also wanted the system to be easy to use, so allowed admins to manage the user accounts, copy data to and from the cluster easily, and also provide a command line tool for people who are not really that familiar with Kubernetes, but are familiar with kind of legacy batch systems. And so that has kind of semantics of that. And we want to also kind of integrate with GKE, which is kind of an internal goal. So support things like GPUs, have monitoring through Stackdriver, and keep logs of the jobs so users can go back later and see those. So that's kind of the overview of the system. And like I said, the thing that I want to talk about most is the API, which is public. We also have scripts and tools and sample jobs, and especially the sample jobs are helpful in helping to understand the API better. And all of this is on GitHub at the link there. So all of the resources in our system are CRDs. And the most important ones in terms of understanding the system are batch job and batch task. And I'll go into those in a little more detail, but I don't want to, take up too much time. Batch job is what the user uses to specify the jobs they want to run in the system. And batch task is a kind of a more of an internal resource our system uses, because a batch job can turn into multiple tasks, especially in case of the user wants to run something like an array job. They might want to run 1,000 instances of a certain task, and so we'll represent those tasks in our system as batch tasks, but it's not really a user defined resource. Batch queues are generally created by the administrator in the system. So you could imagine having, say, a batch queue for each team, or a different batch queue for different types of priorities, so like a low priority queue and a high priority queue. And that leads into batch priority. So on each batch queue, you can designate the priority that queue will have. And what we do is we then, the goal is then to attach that priority to every task that runs under that batch queue. And finally, we have to support our budget and cost management, we have resources which are batch budget and batch cost model. So a batch budget can be attached to a queue, and so everything that runs into that queue will consume from that budget. And the batch cost model is used to define how much each resource in the system costs. So you can define how much like an hour of CPU time costs, or using a gigabyte of RAM for an hour, or the cost for GPUs. And so our system will then use that cost model to determine, when you start running a job, how much of the budget that job might consume. And you can imagine it's a little tricky to manage budget when you don't really know in advance how much resources a job might use. And so kind of the way we work around that is we allow the users to specify maximum runtime on their job, and that will tell us the maximum cost that their job will consume. And that's what we use to determine if a job will be allowed to run. If we have enough budget to run it for the maximum amount of time, then we'll allow it in. And if it finishes early, then we'll kind of give back some of the cost or the budget that it didn't consume to the system. And finally, since these are CRDs, we can use just the standard kube control to create them and to see the status and so on. And as I said, we also created kind of a wrapper for users that are more familiar with the HPC space called KSub, which allows them to do things similar to kube control, but use different syntax. So I can kind of leave it there if there's any discussion, or I can, like I said, I can go into more details, or I can also go into more details.
I think that's good. Like gives food for thought for Mike and wait until next time.
Sure.
But if you guys have any questions, please go ahead.
Yeah, is there is something specific to GKE or is totally generic? And
so the current implementation is on GKE, but certainly the API is flexible enough that we see it could be used in any Kubernetes system.
I guess the question is, like, I'm assuming the images are public as well, like someone can download them, can they?
Right, yes.
And they install them on a vanilla Kubernetes cluster that is not on GKE?
Yeah, so the current images would not necessarily, so we definitely don't support them right now outside of GKE. And I think there may be some issues simply because of the way auto scaling works in our system. I think it's kind of tied fairly closely to GKE. So I suspect running it outside of GKE right now would not work very well. But certainly, you know, it's certainly on our radar to make this work on other systems.
And according to my understanding, the core of KBatch is another scheduler, right?
Yeah, so we have our own scheduler, and so that's we still kind of go through the standard Kubernetes scheduler, but we set the specific node name on each pod, and so we kind of control which nodes the pods get assigned to.
Yeah.
But we don't do all kind of we haven't like forked the scheduler or anything like that to create our own.
So setting the node names, basically, you're bypassing the scheduler, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, we're bypassing the scheduler in the sense that it's not determining which node the pod will run on.
More than that, like the scheduler is not going to make anything. Like it will just this is how second schedulers work. They set the node name.
Okay.
So none of the scheduler logic runs on it. It's not even considered a pod to be scheduled. But the scheduler, the default scheduler, basically add the pod to our internal cache, just to account for the resources that it took from the nodes. But we don't make any decisions on that part. It's not going to go through a scheduling cycle. That's what I'm trying. So that's the difference between setting the node name and node affinity. That's why node name is faster because, well, we're not doing anything.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is quite similar with the Volcano project. I'm not sure if you have heard of that. Volcano.
Yeah. Yeah, we've definitely kind of seen Volcano and looked at it. There are definitely a lot of the goals of the two projects are pretty similar. I think maybe there's some differences, like the idea of having like budgets, a cost model, and I think maybe kind of the auto scaling and kind of the approach around that is a little different as well. But I certainly agree that they are kind of aimed at a similar kind of target audience for sure.
Yeah, I think next time if you give a detailed introduction, I think some audience will ask this question: what's the difference between KBatch and Volcano? Okay, I have another question. So similar like Volcano, because right now the mechanism that you're running is running its own scheduler. But running multiple scheduler is not supporting well, and I don't think in the near term it can be supported well. So that will be a problem. Is what's the roadmap of KBatch? Are you going to still going in this direction? I mean, still deploy it as a standalone scheduler, or you do have some plans to like use the scheduling framework to refactor some of the code to run as plugins of the scheduler?
Yeah, that's a good question. We certainly have been looking at the new scheduling framework and seeing if it makes sense to kind of leverage that. I guess right now, one way we're kind of getting around, at least the conflicts between having two schedulers is we're kind of separating nodes that we're kind of tainting nodes that we want to use for our system, so they can't be used by things that are scheduled directly through the regular scheduler. So we don't end up with those types of conflicts where you might try and schedule two things on the same node and they conflict.
Yes.
So that's one way we're kind of working around that right now. But we're certainly looking into ways to integrate more tightly into the scheduling.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Which one of these CRDs is more similar to the native job?
Oh, the batch job is the most similar. So within a batch job, you have it basically encapsulates a pod spec. So you kind of put a pod spec into a batch job, and then there's also the extra batch related fields like which queue you want it to run on, and so on.
Do you feel that this spec can make it to Kubernetes and replace the current? Like, do we have a strong argument to say that the current job, for example, spec isn't good enough, and that this new batch job spec is better and can replace it, and we can have like some sort of, and can modify the current controller, the job controller, to actually support those new things?
Right. Yeah, I certainly think that's possible. I guess one question is whether we want whether batch job would replace job necessarily, or whether it would exist independent as kind of an additional way you can run a job. I mean, so one issue is if someone doesn't care about batch and they just want to run a job, they may not want to be having to deal with the extra fields that are kind of specific to batch. So I definitely can see batch job becoming part of Kubernetes. I'm just not so sure it would replace job.
Okay, thank you so much. And I'm sorry that we're gonna have you to talk again about it next time as well for our audience.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to talk about it.
So the second item on the agenda I wanted to talk about is the migration, but I don't want to take all the time. So if Mike or Aldo, do you guys have other things that you wanted to discuss before the holidays, other than the migration?
I just saw that you assigned away a bunch more tasks to the migration today and yesterday. Are these the last tasks that need to be done for the migration, or are there going to be more?
There will be few more. I can assign you some if you're not going out like. Are you going to be around like in January?
Probably not until after the new year.
Right. So in January we'll be back.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll be back in January, so you don't need to assign me anything out, but I'll be available like right after the new year.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, just want to know there are some items in my plate. One is the refactor, eliminate the failure reason and failure error, and that maybe needs some time. I hope today I can send a PR because I calculate depends on some of our codes, so I want to be cautious on those refactoring. It is one, and another is I need to sort of eliminate the register feed predicate or something, those kind of things, or feed factory or something. We don't need.
I would suggest that you forget about all the registration logic for now. Just basically keep the registration as it is, and just keep registering basically a no-op function instead of the exact function that you're replacing.
Right now they are just no P.
Yeah. So I think the work on removing the registration logic and replacing the default provider, the way that we express, the what plugins to be executed through the default provider is a whole other beast. I think we should delay until we finish all the internal migration.
Sure. Okay. All right.
So that should simplify things.
Yeah, before vacation, I will focus on the failure reason and failure error one.
Yeah. The failure reason I think is definitely a priority now. Cleans up the generic scheduler, and allows us to remove the predicates and priorities from inside the core scheduler, right? And basically, and the predicate and priority metadata producer. I created a bunch of issues around moving the code of the various predicates and priorities. So hopefully this will move in parallel and finish before the end of 1.18 cycle. And then we can celebrate, we're done with that, and then we can focus on adding more features. Hopefully we come up with new ideas, what plugins. Certainly the community had multiple ideas that was proposed during KubeCon. We can pay more attention to that and improve the scheduler functionality. After we spend, I think now almost 5-6 months on basically refactoring the scheduler, which I think is a really good thing. And it was something that had to be done. Any other concerns, questions? Okay, Matthew, please feel free to add the date that you would like to present. You said you'll be away at beginning of January, so probably it's even better a little bit after the holiday, so that make sure everybody is back.
Yeah, sounds good. It'll probably be like third week of January.
Sure, sounds good.
I'll add it to the doc.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Matthew. Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks.
And happy Christmas.
Yeah, happy Christmas, happy holidays. Enjoy your time off.
Yeah.
Happy holidays, everyone.